So let's take a look at Hong's building here and see if we can slice and dice it up according to some of the things we want to talk about today. One notion we want to talk about is really the idea that there's lots of different floor plan or any types of views that we can create, and we want to go through and customize them so they all show different things that we're interested in. So looking at the outside of the building, things are looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and think about how we can present this most effectively. So I'm going to go popping over to your first floor plan. And here in your first floor plan, we'll see that, what's going on over here? Okay, we have kind of a nice, it's a hidden line view. The materials of the concrete floor I can see. The desks are there. Storeroom. Very nice with the circle in the bathroom to indicate the 5 foot or the 5 foot diameter. Very good there. There's what's going on. You also have a copy of first floor. Let's take a look at that. Oh, and that's one that shows all the sections and things like that, but it isn't shaded. Okay, so you're already starting to do something in terms of different views and using views a little bit differently. The idea is that over here on the first floor plan, we may want to show certain sets of information, but not show others. So for example, those section cuts, okay, which are very useful for me in understanding the building, may not be so useful or may be very distracting to someone else looking at it who just want to understand the floor plan. So we have two different views that are showing the same information, or showing different information, but it really is the same model. So let's talk about how we create that. So over here, let me go back over to your first floor plan. Okay. One thing we might want to do is actually start filtering and highlighting different types of information. So as we're going to go through and present this, I can come up with a lot of different versions of that floor plan. I could come up with a version of the floor plan which really focuses on the furniture and the plumbing fixtures, things like that. Really, in fact, it's sort of what this is. This is sort of very much an architectural plan. It's all about just understanding the space in that way. Okay? I could also go through and put together another plan where maybe I choose to hide the furniture and I put a lot of dimensions on, which are going to show the walls and kind of how all that works together. And let's just kind of talk about how that would work. So first floor is actually, okay, that's just a model view. We're going to create some other model views and then kind of change them around a little bit. If I want to create additional floor plan views, and it really works pretty much the same way for almost all the different types of views, we go through and choose the view name. In this case, that's the same name as the level, first floor, and we duplicate it. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to come on up and right-click on that. I'm going to say just duplicate. You're going to notice that under duplicate, there's actually two choices. There's a choice duplicate, and duplicate with detailing. There's also as a dependent, which I rarely use. The difference between the first two has to do with whether or not we have any annotations on the view. In this one, we don't have very many, I don't think we have any annotations on it just yet, so it'll have the same effect. But the difference is this. Duplicating copies all of the model objects, copies all the building elements. Duplicate with detailing copies all the model elements, but also copies any text, any tags, any dimensions that you put on there. So you get a choice, just building itself or building in those. For right now, since there's no annotations on here, I can just use duplicate. Lets me go through here. I'm going to change the name of this one. I'm going to rename it, and I'll call it, first floor, what will I call it? I'll call it the furniture plan. Because I'm going to create some different views and really feature different things. So I have this one that's called the furniture plan. Let me get another one. I'm going to create another one that we're going to add dimensions to. I'll call it like my construction plan. So I can say, again, duplicating the first floor. I'll rename that one. Oops. Let's go and call that first floor. I can call it dimensioned. I'll just call it dimensioned for right now. So I have several different views here, and I'm going to keep on creating as many of these as I want to. So here's the deal. If I'm going to go through and create a view, one of the first choices I can make is really just, what do I want to feature? What do I want to highlight or not show in that view? So in this, watch, I'm in the dimension view right now. Let me go to the furniture plan view. Again, same model objects. Any changes I make to the model objects will affect everything. So in this view, I got that furniture, I got the carpet, I got the cabinetry. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. You can go through and hide things that you might want to hide. You can go through and highlight things that you might want to highlight. Okay? And both those things all happen through something called a visibility/graphics override. Okay, so There is the default behavior to go through and show things with the shading, show them with the patterns here. You know, they're coming by default out of the model, but you can change any of these things. So for example, if I wanted to really call your attention to the furniture and really pull that out because someone's going to need to go order that furniture and I really want to make sure they're seeing exactly what they want them to focus on, what I can do is actually choose visibility graphic overrides. I can choose it in a number of ways. I can choose it over in the properties palette for the floor plan. Another way you can choose it is under the View tab. It's up here, Visibility Graphics. Okay. The other way that I often use is I just type VG, because I do it a lot. I keep on just going to Visibility Graphics and changing things. It brings up a dialog that looks like this, and here's how it works. Basically, these are all the different categories of objects in the model. And if you're used to working with a drafting system, you may think about these as layers. It's very similar. It's just sort of layers that have been specifically allocated to different types of objects. So for example, if I want to go through and do something like just turn off the furniture so I can't see it, I can just turn off its visibility. And when I do that, I can pull this aside to see if we can see this. And can you even shrink that? Nah, I don't have much shrinking room on this screen. I'll say apply, and when I turn off the furniture disappears in the background. Okay, so just basically hiding the layer so we can't see things. So you can really turn on and off anything. I can turn the furniture back on. There's that whole issue of the floor and the speckling on the floor. Okay. You can show floors if you want to, or hide floors. If I turn off floors, you'll see the floor pattern will disappear. Also, Hung's landing disappeared because that's a floor object. So you may or may not want to do that. We turn on floors. Another thing you can do with floors is if you don't want to have the entire object go away, let me make that show up again. I can go through and actually just change the notion of the visibility of that pattern. That's another thing you can change. So you can turn off, you can control basically whether the entire object will appear or not appear. You can go through and control how the lines will appear and also whether or not the patterns will appear. And they're really three separate variables. So for the floor, if, for example, I don't want to see that pattern on the floor, I can choose to override it. And I can just make the pattern not visible. So now the floor is still there. You just can't see the little speckled pattern on it. Now, that may be useful to you as you're working. Sometimes as you're working, if you have a lot of patterning on the floor, like for a hardwood floor, those lines start getting in the way of everything. So sometimes you want to show them, sometimes you want to turn them off. But you always have the option of controlling what you want people to see. So one thing you can do in visibility graphics is just turn things off, filter them out. Okay. The other thing that visibility graphics is really good for is actually highlighting things to really make sure that people see them. There's no chance you're going to miss what I want you to see in this view. So let's talk about how you do that. Again, Hung has all this furniture in here. If that's what I want to feature in this view, what I can do is find the furniture again and change its line work. So I've chosen the furniture. I'll say override. Okay. By default, it's showing up with a specific line weight and a color, and we can change to those things. For example, if I want those lines of the furniture to be really, really fat and heavy, so it's no chance you're going to miss them, I can change the weight. Now, the weight of the lines is really a relative scale. There's a place where you go through and adjust this. But 1 is very thin, 3 is kind of medium, 5 is getting sort of heavy, 7 is getting downright fat, 9 is really chunky, and it's progressively bigger and bigger. So I'm going to make it 7, so there's really no chance I'm going to miss them. Say OK. You can sort of see even a little illustration of really what it's going to look like there. And when I say apply, you see those lines just darken up. So you can't just darken the lines. The other thing you can do, actually something I do in a lot of my plans, is I actually have a color coding scheme that I assign to different things. So, I'll do things like, hot water lines are red, cold water lines are blue, sanitation lines are orange. I have this sort of a funny color coding scheme. I think color actually adds a lot of information to help people sort out the meaning of the lines. If I, for example, want to change the color coding on the furniture, I could, for example, make it a brown color. Say OK. And when I apply that, okay, It'll show it up in that different color. So you have this option. There's always this option of really what you want to do in terms of highlighting different things. So in different views, there are times when I want to highlight the plumbing fixtures because it's a plumbing. In fact, let's do that. So over here, here's my furniture plan. It's looking pretty good. Let's say I wanted to have a plumbing plan instead that was really going to feature those so whoever's going to need to put the pipes in the building can really make sure they see everything. I'll go back to that first floor. Let me duplicate it again. Okay, and in this view, again, I'll say visibility graphics, but I'll focus on a different type of object. Let me focus on the plumbing objects. Okay, there's plumbing fixtures. Again, for this one, I'll give them a big old fat line that you cannot miss, and I'll make them blue. So let's see what happens there.
If you start doing this and change things, if you change something in the general plan, will it change in all of your duplicate plans?
A very good question. Okay, model objects will change. So if I move the sink, if I move the toilet, so for example, Hung, I know you don't want to do this, but I'm just going to show you. So if I move the sink over to there instead, okay, what's happening is I've actually moved the model object, so every other view, because it's just a camera, will also reflect that change. So the furniture plan, the dimension plan, anything that's a true model object changes everywhere. Okay. Something else we're going to add in a minute, a dimension or an annotation, that won't change because that's only local to the view. Okay, so cool thing is you can create all these things, get them set up, and keep on changing the design underneath. You know, the story will still be told the way you want it to. Oh, I needed to rename that. Let me kind of rename that guy over there, plumbing plan. So I got my furniture plan, got my plumbing plan. Again, I can decide to go through and turn those off. In my plumbing plan, in fact, you know, if I just really want someone to focus on the plumbing fixtures, maybe I want to turn off the furniture so they're not paying attention to that. That might be distracting to them. So again, I'll say visibility graphics. Just turn off the furniture. Say apply that. And it's just getting a little cleaner in terms of what's going on. There's some other elements. You can always find out what an element is by clicking on it. So for example, well, these guys over here, which I think are cabinets of some type, they have a type called casework. So if I turned off the casework, they would disappear. I believe this countertop over here, that's probably also considered a piece of casework. So you can either hover over it, you got to find out what it is. The other thing you can do is, hang on, let me see. This is kind of complaining at me a little bit. I want to see if I can get that to shrink up. If you choose an object, you can also see what it is. Oh, just down here in the status bar, it'll tell you that it's casework. So you can always see what the category is. So again, if I wanted to turn off that casework right now, so I didn't see those either, I could say visibility graphics. I'll find the casework category and turn that off. Okay, so customize your views. Either show things or highlight things. In this case, what happened over in this copy of first floor view, okay, Hung has that set up. This shows all these sections right now, but his other views don't show the sections. And the way that can be happening is if you go to the first floor plan, any of them in here, and you say visibility graphics, you can actually find sections are a type of object. Now, sections are a different type of object. There's something called a model category. Those are the real building elements, the things that actually have real physical meaning. A section is really, it's kind of more of an abstract thing that we are cutting through the building. They tend to live under the annotation categories. So if I go rolling down through here, you can find, nope, sections are still turned on. So I know that Hong actually, he hid those individually. And that's okay, you can hide them in views that way. You could also turn them off right here. But let me show you what he did. Okay. If you have something and there's just some little piece of the model you just don't want to see for whatever reason, and you don't want to turn off everything in the same category, there's just this one little one that is, you know, something that you just don't want to see in the view. And Lord knows what this is going to be. There's going to be something that's going to come up where there's some little thing you just want to hide in the view. What you can do is actually choose any specific element, okay, and you can, it's actually down, actually there's a couple ways you can get to it. Let me do it this way. I can right click on it. I can say hide it in the view. When I say hide it in the view, I'm hiding either the specific elements that are selected. I could hide everything in the same category, but you can always just hide things. And there's going to be times when that's just useful. There's something showing up in the middle that you just don't really want for the story you're trying to tell. Okay, so you can go ahead and hide those as necessary independently. I can hide that specific element. Now, if things are hidden and you know they're there, but you're just not seeing them, okay, one way to check out what's hidden from you right now is, way down here at the bottom, there's actually this thing called Reveal the Hidden Elements. And if you choose that little control, it'll show you, hey, here's everything that's currently hidden. So if you want to unhide things, you can turn that on. I can see that that desk is hidden right now, and I can just toggle it. I can unhide it. So you can hide things individually or hide them at a higher level. Yes?
Does hiding an element in one sheet affect all the other sheets?
No, it's on a one view at a time thing. Okay, so what we started with here is just this notion of, okay, we're creating some new plan views. We did that where we duplicated with or without detailing. We renamed the view. Okay, we're going to create some new plan views here in a second. But it's this notion of filtering the elements that are displayed. Okay, so using visibility graphics, going through and adjust the appearance of things, turning them on and off, overriding the line weight. You can make them semi-transparent or half-tone them if you want to kind of gray them out a little bit. You have a lot of control for that stuff. Okay, and this same principle is going to keep on coming up again and again. So let's go back to the model. Let's talk about creating these new floor plan views. We can go ahead and create these new floor plan views, and probably the easiest way to do it is just go through and duplicate an existing view. Okay. But you can create in other ways too, just to let you know. Under the View tab, I can create a floor plan view or a reflected ceiling view or some other types using some of the options here. But let's talk about the difference. Okay. A floor plan view is this. A floor plan view is cut through the model. It's cut through horizontally. So picture just a line cutting through at 4'6" above the floor. Okay. And the reason we choose 4'6" above the floor is it's kind of a pretty good height in that 4'6" is it's above desks and countertops, and that's okay. It kind of will show you everything that's below. Okay. It turns out if you look at the door, 4'6" will cut through the door too, so you'll see the doors pretty well. Okay. Yes?
Can you change that height?
Yes, you can. Exactly. In fact, often you do want to do that. Yeah. Because if you want to make it sort of 5 feet standardly, that's something actually controlled. It's called the cutting plane, and you control that in something called the view range. Let me show you what that is. Okay, so again, every individual view, not the entire model, every individual view has something called the cutting plane. And if you want to change that in the properties palette, you'll actually find view range. And there's this notion of really what the cut plane is. So actually it's 4 feet, pardon me. I don't think 4'6". Okay, 4 feet. If I want to change that and make it higher, I'll actually try making it lower first. I'll make it 2 feet off the ground. Watch this. I lowered it to 2 feet off the ground. Notice what happened to Hong's windows. Okay. They're still there. They're in the model. I'm just cutting too low so you're not seeing them. So let me put it back to 4 feet. Okay, I'm seeing his windows. Now, a lot of people may have troubles because they actually have some windows that are even higher than what 4 feet would cut through. If the bottom of the window is above 4 feet, you're not going to see it being cut through. So what you may have to do is actually raise it to like 5 feet or 6 feet. Okay. And notice when I raised it to 5 feet, actually these little windows, this is probably some sort of a clear story window, it's a little bit higher, I think that one is too. Notice they showed up a little bit better. So here's the 4 foot. Okay. You can barely see the bottom of the window. You can't see the window sill. But if I cut it up a little higher, I can make it 5 feet. But let's talk about a difference. Okay, make it back to 4. You probably won't use this very much early on, but later on when you start doing buildings that have a lot of complex differences in height, in fact, like for the next assignment, you'll probably end up using it. there's a notion of, I like the idea of the view range, but what if I actually had a single view and I wanted to have two different view ranges? Because over here, 4 feet's working just fine for me. But over here, the 4 feet's a little bit low. So if you want to start customizing that and have a different view range, different cutting plane in different parts of the drawing, no worries, you can do that. It's very useful if you have a split level house, or you have something where just the views are coming at different levels and you want to just be able to sort of reflect something in a little region of the plan a little bit differently. Where you find that is under the plan views. There's something called a view, plan region, excuse me. All a plan region is, it's just a subset of your plan. You're going to use a different view range in that subset. So for example, on this back wall over here where I have these clear story windows, I might want to have a different view range right there. So how I do is I say, make a plan region. We're back into sketching mode. So how's sketching mode going to work? And so we're going to draw a nice boundary. I'm just going to grab those guys right there. And for this area, let me sort of say that's the sketched area. That's the area that I'm going to highlight. Finish that up. Or actually say view range. I'm going to say for that little area inside the pink boundary, let's go ahead and raise those to be 6 feet as opposed to 4 feet. I can apply that. Say OK. Finish that. Okay, there we are. Now, don't worry about that big green box that's kind of hanging around in that part of the drawing. Okay, that's not going to print. That's just there to show you that that's where the view range is right now. And notice again, this view range is local to the view. So I have it on this dimension view. If I go back to the furniture plan view, it's still the other way. So it's just sort of a very local setting. Okay. Some of the other things you can do in here in the creating new plan views or sort of a menu is you can go through and create some different types of views. Floor plans are the ones cutting down. Reflected ceiling plans, that's again, let's cut it here but look up instead. So if I wanted a view that's going to show all these light fixtures, all the microphones, all this stuff, I would actually cut again at 4 feet, but I'd be looking up instead. Okay. So let's kind of see what that's like. In Hong's drawing, the first floor cutting up kind of looks like the ceiling. So what we're doing is we're cutting through just looking up at the roof plane above us. Okay. That has a view range too. Looks like it's showing me one of the different roofs there. I could change its view range and say, don't just stop above the first floor. Let me even go further. I'm going to basically take it to unlimited. Okay, then it'll show me the full thing. So here's something you sort of got to get used to in these different views is that you'll often have the model there, but you just have to adjust the view range so you can see the entire model. Because if things are just outside the range, they're not going to show up. Okay, that'll get us going in terms of understanding some of the filtering stuff. Let's go ahead and talk about just really some visibility graphics. Kind of change model objects. We can change some annotation objects. Let's go through and actually move to the next part, which is actually adding annotations to the drawing. And then we can talk about how we can sort of filter and control some of those things too. So where do annotations fit in this? Annotations are things that you add to any, yes, specific view.
Yeah, how do you see like the floor plan in 3D? So like without the
Very cool. Let's just kind of give you an illustration of that. So you're looking at the floor plan. It's looking okay, but kind of flat. You say, hey, I got 3D modeling. I ought to be able to present this in a much more interesting way. Okay. You can do this a couple of different ways. One way, you can show the 3D view. Looking pretty good. But that roof's in the way. Okay. People will do all sorts of things here. You can hide the roof, okay, individually. You can say visibility graphics and hide the roof. And that's kind of okay. You can do that. Oops, turn off the roof. But that's not exactly what I have in mind because that clear story wall's in there and it's kind of a little cluttery and stuff like that. So let me show you a trick. Okay. You got this 3D view. Okay. There's actually this mystery thing called the section box that's hidden from you, but it's available. Let's show you what it does. Let me put the roof back on again. We'll come on down. I'll say roofs. The section box is actually a property that you can turn on or off. Again, this is sort of something available to all the different views. I'll turn on the section box. It's probably hidden from me. No, there it is. Okay. There it is. It's this big shoebox that's kind of hanging around your building. What it does is it actually has 6 different planes that we can use to cut away parts of the building to create sections. So, for example, if you want to create a section for your building, you can push in to the side. Just cut away part of the building. Similarly, you could come to the top, and I could pull down, and I'll call it scalping the building. Take off the top of the building. So that's kind of what you ultimately want to do. But let me kind of show you. This is a really good one. Write this one down somewhere. Okay, or watch the video again. There's a shortcut for doing this, which is really, really handy because you got a section box, okay? You got a floor plan view. You kind of like to get the two things together so that everything I did in that floor plan view applies as a 3D section. Okay, so they actually came up with a shortcut to actually let you do this. And let me show you where it is. It's hiding, as a lot of things that you can really do. In this case, under the view cube. So under that little view cube, little did you know there's actually a menu hiding behind there. And here's what happens if you choose the menu. You escape out of there to close that up. If I right-click on this thing, you'll actually find all sorts of different things to control things about the view, including one called Orient View. And now, what's Orient View? What's that all about? Well, what it does is it lets you choose a floor plan view, for example, the copy of the first floor. And what it does is it sets the section box so it matches the crop and the sectioning and everything about that first floor plan view. Now, what it just did was it sort of flattened it down so it also has the same orbit to it. It has the same sort of relative camera position. But no worries, we can rotate it back up. Okay. So that's the quickest way to go ahead and create a 3D view of your floor plan. So just go ahead and have a 3D view. Here's what you need. You need a 3D view. Okay. You go to that little box over there, you say, great, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to orient it to the view. Super. Now, I love this view so much. I'm going to put this on my sheets because I think Lottie's going to like it when I show it. It's going to tell the story nicely. So, here's 3D view. I would love to save this view. Okay. 3D views, how you save them is, or at least for this default 3D view, very similar to what we did in the floor plan. Here's the deal. The default 3D view is kind of cool, but we keep on changing the default 3D view around. So, if I want to go ahead and save this camera, I can't just kind of leave it the default 3D view because when I go back and change something else, it's going to keep on orbiting this and changing it. Okay, so what do I got to do? I'm going to make a duplicate of it, okay, and leave it alone. So here's what I do. I'm going to come over here to the 3D view, the default 3D view, and in that very same thing that we did before, I'm just going to duplicate the view. Okay, I'm going to give it a nice name like, rename it 3D floor plan. Now that can be put on my sheets. The cool thing is, since I've duplicated it, I go back to the default 3D view and I mess around. Whatever it is I'm doing over here, I decided I wanted to look at that side of the building instead. If I come back over to 3D floor plan, it still looks the same. Yes? You asked the perfect leading question. That's fantastic. Okay, what you can do, I got to find it down here and there. There it is in your 3D views. There's actually this little thing called locking it. So currently this view is locked. If I click on that, it will lock it away. So exactly, you can't accidentally do it. And you would never accidentally do that. But when you're working on a team with 3 other people, they are going to accidentally change your view. So that's what you get into locking the view. If you really want to keep something, and ultimately, what I want you to start thinking about is there's some views that become your working views that you keep on changing and messing around with and you just alter constantly. Other things are this is looking pretty good. It's kind of finished. I'm going to put this on a sheet. Please don't touch it anymore. The model could change, but I have the camera and the shading and everything set up just the way I want it. Okay, so copy those over under a special name, put them off in the corner and don't change those anymore. So you can keep changing the model in the other views, but start thinking about some views as being the presentation views. So kind of working views, presentation views. And start getting, you're going to start just copying views all the time, because really, as soon as you go into that visibility graphics menu more than 2 or 3 times, turn off the roof. Oh, I need to turn it back on. I want to turn it off again. I need to turn that back on. As soon as you do that about 3 times, that's a signal that, hey, I should probably just duplicate the view and have one with the roof and one without the roof. So, views are cheap. Make as many views as you want to for your own work. Be conservative about how you present them, but make views so that just to make your life easier. Okay, so the same notion, let's blast ahead to something very related. The same notion of the 3D view, and you like the 3D floor plan view. Okay, there's that section view. Let's see if I think Lottie created, or Lottie, Hong, hard to be, I'm getting people confused today. Hong created this lovely section view. It looks fantastic in 2D. If he said, I'd really like to have that in 3D, because again, I think Lottie's going to like that an awful lot. What he can do is, again, go to the 3D view. Right-click on that, say Orient View, and we can choose one of the sections. And I think that was section 1. What it'll do is take the 3D view, cut the section box in exactly the same way, orient it to the same flat plane. But once it's oriented there, I can sort of orbit that around. And since I like that one so much, I'll again duplicate it and call it, that's my 3D section. Okay, so that's this general principle. We're going to keep on copying and duplicating and doing that kind of stuff. Is that feeling pretty comfortable? More or less? Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and take our break now. We're about to launch into the whole notion of annotations, and I'd rather just kind of do that continuously. So let's go and take our break now. It's just about 9:54 right now. Try to come back just right by 10 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to cut it a little short today because I want to get everything in. But if you can, is it Bagel Tuesday? If you're going to Bagel Tuesday, rush to Bagel Tuesday and come on back. But try and get yourself back here around 10 if we can, so that we can actually go ahead and get started, and we'll launch into annotations too.